Welcome back to Cheche. What sort of judges does the Supreme Court need? That's the question we're focusing on this morning because, as you will know, the court, the highest in the country, lacks quorum. The vacancy notices are out, so if you're interested in applying, you have until next week to get your papers in. Our guests are Professor Margaret Kobia of the JSC, Vice Chairperson, and Anna Madi, the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, also Secretary to the JSC. And so before the break, we were talking about ethnic considerations as you go about your recruitment, and you said that these will be a factor. You also ruled out any one community as has become perceived wisdom, having a say on who becomes, you know, the next office holder. But you wanted to make a point, David, further to that.
Well, since you discounted the communal succession plan that we see in almost all positions when they fall vacant, if you're from Bungoma, the next person will be from Bungoma, from that community, you get that. But will we retain the makeup of the gender balance that the CJ or deputy has to be of either gender? Is that now a settled matter?
I think right now for the CJ, which will start first, it can be any gender. JSC is not looking for a male or female. We are looking for a competent Kenyan who can do this job. However, if it happens to be a woman for CJ, then deputy has to be a man.
Okay.
Yeah. Or vice versa. That's how it works.
Okay. And so you saw me chuckling to myself, and that's because of one of our viewers. Morning. Does this mean, as a qualified Kikuyu, I should not apply for the CJ's position because the other two arms of government are headed by Kikuyus? We're not related at all.
Yeah. I think Kenyans have such concerns, but in my view, they need to think through it. Yeah, let me leave it up to there, because I think we are not here to say which community should apply and which community should not apply. But we are here to say community consideration will not be the only factor, but competencies as they are in the advert. Whoever looks at them and feels that they qualify, they should apply. They should not disqualify themselves to the point of ethnicity or community.
Okay. Beyond competencies, you discounted political considerations, but there is some politics in this, isn't there? Because the Supreme Court decides effectively. It's the last arbiter on who becomes the president of Kenya. So how does that complicate the recruitment process?
At the table right now, because JSC is very dependent, I do not see any political influence.
Where is the evidence that JSC
coming to you, Mategi?
Yeah, we are independent because we don't take instruction from any authority or any person. Therefore, as I sit there now...
What do you mean you don't take instructions? The instructions can come by phone call.
Yeah, but we are 10 of us. So if I get instructions, I cannot make it pass through 10 persons, because each one of them is also making sure that they do the right thing. So I would actually say that politics, even there, politics in everything. It's about interest.
But do you expect political pressure?
In fact, Mutegi, I think
we expect political
properly. Because first, let's look at the independence of the JSC itself. Before we even seek the independence of the Supreme Court, which it's going to create. There have been questions about that very composition of the Judicial Service Commission, which a year ago saw, in anticipation of this succession, there were certain appointments and changes to its composition. Some members exited in very mysterious, haphazard, circumstances which raised queries, and then two other members were inserted in the Judicial Service Commission, and it's been read that this was in anticipation of these changes or appointing a new Supreme Court.
I would say that right now we'll be talking about the JSC, which is on the table.
Yes.
How each one of came to be on the table is within the Constitution and the law. Therefore, I do not have really a strong reason to believe any of them, depending how they came, is going to influence this position. I don't see it.
It is argued that the composition is strongly in favor of Jubilee. Let me make it this clear, that some members who came on to join this JSC had associations or are said to have been associated with the government side of the political party that's in government.
And we can extend that further to say, and as a result of that, that as you go about recruiting these three judges, that you'll be looking to ensure that you have judges who favor the status quo, who reflect the balance at the
I don't think we will be looking for a judge who favors any divide of the politics. We will be looking for Kenyan, a CJ, who can be able, one perception we have had is, oh, there is cartel and all. We are looking for a person who can stand against those cartels.
But did you hear of those allegations?
And we have had allegations, and we have had...
You've heard about those allegations?
We have
yes.
heard.
And
we have
what would be your response to that, those claims?
You know, we allow people to have their own opinion. So long as what has been done is not against any law, and people have found themselves represented in any commission, I think I will not be really that judgmental. But I would expect the individual sitting in that table right now to look for the right CJ, regardless of the political divide.
Panelists, I'll come to you now, because Professor Kobia says that this should not necessarily be a political position. But is that a bit of disingenuity? Because as we know, the Supreme Court decided the last election, 2013, and so clearly, or maybe not clearly, do you believe that the composition of the new Supreme Court will influence the next election? Is that something to take into consideration?
But I suppose if there is a petition, they have to hear. The question is who will be the judiciary. Well, if there is a petition, the Supreme Court will have to hear. The matter that is being raised is the Chief Justice who will be there. Will he be like Mutunga? Because
in what sense?
The ODM blamed the Chief Justice of Mutunga for...
it was with the election dispute that we now heard these...
the ruling they made did not make... They were not happy with it. So if I was ODM now, I would like to see somebody who will be maybe better than Mutunga, who will be making the rulings and not...
What do you mean better? More friendlier to my side, my interest?
Well, you know the argument that he refused, or the Supreme Court refused some evidence on technical grounds. And of course they tried to change the 14 days to 30 days. Because there was no time to look. They argued that they should have listened to their thing before they made the decision. So the Chief Justice who is coming, it will be very crucial in 2017 if there is a petition. And therefore, as he was arguing, my friend here, the appointment, if I was in government, I will make sure, if I was Uru and Ruto, I will try as much as possible to influence somebody. If there is a petition, he will in my favor. And the
JSC is aware of that both divides will influence. Because whoever, anyway, is it not obvious? Whoever loses brings the team. Whoever wins is happy. Therefore, I think JSC is very right that there will be political pressure for us to give in. But I think we'll use our criteria to get the just independent CJ. And of course, we expect as we move forward, even the Supreme Court should make determination of the matter in the petition of election, depending on the evidence before them.
David, what do you think?
Well,
there are seven.
It is true that obviously the political class, both sides, opposition and government, were interested in getting a Chief Justice in the Supreme Court that is in its favor or is friendlier in terms of the composition of the members. And there is no doubt each of them is going to try to get that kind of bench, quorum appointed to the Supreme Court. And if you look at it, the politics began quite a while back, and even the exit of the former Chief Justice William Mutunga and the struggles around the DCJ and how it was being managed, and all these orders that were flying around that were finally nailed out when the Supreme Court declined to listen to the age factor resignations. There were political, politics at play, and so it's good to hear that the chairperson of the JSC is saying that there is politics out there, but we are people of solid character. We will not be influenced by the political pressure, and we have to be optimistic that we will not, at the end of the day, politics will not prevail. Otherwise, we'll end up with a messy recruitment and a Chief Justice who does not have the confidence of the bigger public.
And you have just seen it. We have gone through that, and you saw that JSC, the decision they made stood at the end. Therefore, we are alive We live in this country, there will be pressure, but I think we will stand firm to look for the Chief Justice. When you say the name is X, Kenyans will say yes. We are very clear on that. Therefore, we all of us swore to protect the Constitution. We'll just go by that. And I've not seen among the members, I have 10 now on the table, any kind of interest to lean towards a certain side, because they know what that would mean to Kenyans. Remember, it's only judges that do not have to go every 5 years back to electorate to get a new mandate. Executive goes, Parliament goes, but the judges, they are there until 70. So this is a very huge responsibility for JSC to allow ourselves as members to be indented that we did the wrong thing because of political
pressure. We'll come back to the ethnic consideration because it seems to have exercised our viewers. But there's a question I'd like to ask you, staying within politics. Towards the end of his tenure, we saw a very frustrated Chief Justice, William Mutunga, talking about corruption, talking about cartels, and even pronouncing himself on current affairs within the country. And there are those who are alarmed by that because they felt that it eroded this perception of both dignity but also neutrality. Is that something that you find worrying? That, you know, when you come to vetting, the judges going forward, that you'll be saying, whatever your political opinions are, whatever you think is going on in the country, keep them to yourself.
Let me comment that William Mutunga himself did a great job in judiciary in terms of a court expansion, in terms of reducing the backlog, in terms of
you had a judicial transformation
program, even moving from our budget from 3 billion to now 16. That alone tells you a lot. However, nobody is perfect. And the former Chief Justice said things the way he saw them, which not all of us can do that. So I don't think he was actually sounding frustrated, but he was like trying to communicate what he understood at the end of his term. Some of these issues to do with corruption, he would want whoever comes to take, I think, to take it to the next level. So I think he was doing it as in a good faith, and to ensure that even as I'm going, I've done up to this far, but still some work remains to be done.
Isn't it? But then the question is, you speak very well of him and his clear vision and not frustration, but open-mindedness, not spokenness. You are with him. You are the Judicial Service Commission he was speaking for. Did he share these things within the JSC, your meetings, the frustrations about the corruption, the cartels especially, and what were those cartels doing? And what did the JSC try to do to dismantle them?
You know that Chief Justice is the chair on Judicial Service Commission, and most of the issues that need the decision will bring them to JSC, including what they were struggling with the Supreme Court. So therefore, I think he did his best, and he shared with the JSC, and some of the things that maybe might not have been as well done. I think this is what we should be moving forward to ensure that we get a Chief Justice and also an energized JSC that will support. Because that's why we are 10, so that we can all bring our thinking to the table to make better decisions.
That same, just allow, that same CJ in his term was accused of having worked with, again, a certain cartel within the JSC that ran the judiciary. That there was a clique of people.
Actually, I think that question should best be directed to the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary.
Well, I think
okay, bring it out.
I think for her as well, because there was supposed to be this team of lawyers who were the backing of the CJ, who he acted with the counsel of, yet there was the Judicial Service Commission, and he was blamed at some point. And people who have been critics have said, even him, he had his own cartel. Who ran the judiciary with him? Were you part of the cartel?
I don't think I was part of the cartel, but as you say, there's also Sierra J maybe comment as
you aware of the
chief
cartel?
Actually, because when something is not formal and
you're not aware of cliques within the judiciary, people with access, inordinate access to the Chief Justice.
Actually, Chief Justice was very open everybody walked in and out of it.
You're being diplomatic with us, aren't you? Your predecessor claims that she was ousted by a cartel.
Unfortunately, I wasn't there when this happened. But when I got in, I know that we lost 4 directors at the same time. We lost the director, finance, procurement. I don't remember the other 2. We lost 4 at the same time, along with other staff. And investigations happened. I'm sure you're aware that there are cases going on at the anti-corruption court. So once there is that formal process, then we have to wait for the outcome. Otherwise, beyond that, I wouldn't be able to tell unless there is something that is formally.
So what you're saying is that you're not aware of any cartels, cliques operating within the judiciary?
I hear about it, but I don't know who's in the cartel.
Right.
I think it's something that we also listen.
Yes.
The general public see there are cartels in the judiciary. And that's why I said, JSC has said we must get somebody who will stand against cartels. And the cartels come because maybe they find a weakness. Maybe
but even the JSC was accused of having cartels within it.
I've not seen cartels in JSC. It's more, you know, what people will say. But of course, perception cannot also
in fact, the
totally be ignored.
Pressed to the recruiting team that recruited the current bench, the Supreme Court as well as the Court of Appeal. And, you know, that is the team that had been said to be, you know, the team that maybe they were allies of the CJ in helping him to sort out the war, because transformation was also quite a challenge, and he needed strong backup, and that's why people who have supported him or reflected his thinking or whose thinking he reflected was said to be a cartel.
But we also need to agree, yes, cartels are going to come if they find space, or because everybody has their interest. So we are saying the next Chief Justice must be able to chase away cartels.
The Supreme Court was accused of judicial activism.
Yes.
Sorry, I'd like to address this issue of ethnicity before we come to judicial activism, because we need to spend some time on that. And the reason why I say we need to come to ethnicity is because our viewers are exercised by the issue. You'll recall that I read a text from a listener, from a viewer rather.
You should not bother.
Who said he's Kikuyu, he's not related to the president who comes from the Kikuyu community. So I've been corrected by Murezi in Mombasa, who says the executive is led by Uhuru Kenyatta, a Kikuyu, and the legislature is led by Justin Muturi and Mbere. So the arms are not led by Kikuyus as alleged, not by me but by one of our viewers, although you could argue that it's generally seen as coming from the Gema community. And there's several other people who are taking issue with the singling out of one community. Take Milka. This is a critical position. Why should tribe be a consideration?
I said it's very important people look at the adverts and they apply, and we will do it shortlisting. Once they met on merit, I can tell you there's no way Kenyans are going to allow us not to have a face of Kenya. But that face of Kenya, those who are going to be considered must first meet the competencies that we are looking for.
Okay, sorry. Judicial activism.
Yes, I was asking about judicial activism, and we alluded to that matter when he said most of the Supreme Court judges come from outside the judiciary. Now, how are you going to make sure that that label is not there after the appointment?
I think that the Constitution itself is activist in nature. It is, and therefore the Supreme Court is expected to go by the Constitution. You cannot be conservative when interpreting an activist document.
Plus, if you look at the appointment since the Constitution, if you look at the most people who got those positions, there are people who had been activists, they were visible, they championed a certain cause. So I don't think a certain level of activism is also bad. However, it should not supersede the reasoning of maybe the job one has to do. Therefore, that moderation is important. And that's why we are looking for a Chief Justice who will not be an activist, but at the same time won't be so lukewarm that things are just cartels are finding their way to judiciary.
In fact, it's true that we need an activist Chief Justice to continue with the, if he was activist, the trend of Mutunga. At least that was a positive attitude, because this constitution needs somebody who can push and stick his neck out. The rights provided for the Bill of Rights, which are prone to violation, needs a champion, and that champion has to be sitting at the helm of the judiciary. Should we be looking for a worse activist, if I may say, than Mutunga?
Now activism has taken a negative kind of perception. So I'll be looking for somebody who can champion.
Right, a champion of the Constitution.
The champion of the Constitution, without labeling them activists, because that is already taken a little bit negative.
Okay. I'm told it's break time. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. The Judicial Service Commission is receiving applications, none have come in yet, for the positions of Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice and Supreme Court Judge. What factors should they consider in their search to fill these positions? SMS us, our number is 22422, or tweet us using the hashtag Cheche.